Trump will not change his view of Russia, that he will continue to be a fellow traveler with Russia, and that he will continue to be Putin's most useful idiot.
Okay, General Sir Richard Shirreff for the World in 10 podcast, former Deputy Supreme Allied Commander Europe at NATO. Just first of all, can you give me your immediate analysis of Donald Trump's announcement last night? Do you believe that without US aid, Ukraine can continue to at least hold the line, let alone actually go on any sort of offensive?
Well, first I'd say that there really hasn't been a surprise in the announcement that we woke up to this morning that US military aid to Ukraine has been suspended. Because it's all of a piece with the events of the last 10 days, really, since Trump announced that he'd had a 90-minute phone call with Putin. We then had the various interventions at the Munich Security Conference. We had America voting alongside Russia and North Korea in the United Nations against a European motion condemning Russian aggression in Ukraine. And then we had the appalling meltdown in the Oval Office on Friday and the assault on President Zelensky. So no surprises at all. And what it highlights is the extent to which Trump is now very firmly in Putin's camp, that America cannot be relied upon or trusted as an ally, and that the world order that we've had maintaining peace and stability and security in the transatlantic region for over 75 years is now broken. So this is big stuff. As far as the immediate future in Ukraine is concerned, I can't give you detail. The Ukrainians are going to find it really tough. Of course they are, because the spares for Abrams tanks and Bradley infantry fighting vehicles, the ammunition, the long-range precision missiles, the HIMARS, the ATACMS, the Patriot air defense missiles that have been guarding Ukrainian cities, those are going to dry up, and the Ukrainians are going to have to find an alternative. Either that, or they're going to come under increasing pressure, increasing fire. But having said all that, the way the Russian army is operating, let's be clear, the Russians are not 10 feet tall. They have been making glacial progress inch by inch. The Ukrainians have not broken, and the Ukrainians have shown remarkable technical and battlefield ingenuity. The fact that they've effectively defeated the Black Sea Fleet without a navy, the autonomous vehicles, the drones, the other capabilities that the Ukrainians have developed, all tell me that Ukraine can hold on. But there's a big but, and the but is it depends on Europe and Canada doing what they can as quickly as they can to fill the gaps.
We'll come on to that in just a moment, because I just want to ask a sort of slightly tangential question related to this, and that is that at this moment in time, this is simply a report in America, but there are suggestions that not only will this military aid be cut, but that also Trump is considering a cutback in intelligence sharing with Ukraine as well. I wonder, from the battle's point of view, whether that would be more or less significant or similar, again, in terms of its impact on Ukraine's potential within this war.
I think it's all of a piece, and we'll have, it would be a major issue. Of course it would. And then again, I come back to my point about how you can get around that. We would have to find other ways. Difficult though that might be, imperfect though that might be, of helping Ukraine to circumvent that.
Let's talk about then Europe and Canada. This morning, Ursula von der Leyen from the European Commission described Europe as being in an era of rearmament. 800 billion euros is the sort of relatively arbitrary figure that we're talking about at the moment. I mean, to what extent can Europe replace what the US has been offering? This isn't just about money, is it? I mean, even the quality of weaponry that the US sends is top tier, as it were, to use modern parlance.
Yeah, Europe is capable of producing top tier defense equipment. Europe is rich. Europe has ingenuity, Europe has technical genius. So Europe and Canada can do it, but it's going to require sacrifice, leadership, will. On a practical level, it's going to require rationalizing of European defense industries, and it's going to require us to really turn to and understand and make the sort of sacrifices that need to be made, because this is an existential crisis for Europe as it is for Ukraine. So if people are prepared to and are going to have to be prepared to dig deep, then Europe in time can do it, but it's going to take time as well.
During yesterday's World in 10, we were speaking to Roger Boys, a diplomatic editor of the Times, and he talked about this coalition of the willing that Sir Keir Starmer had announced over the weekend. And he said, that the flaw in a coalition of the willing is you might be willing, but are you able? Can Europe do so quickly enough to counter the problems that this Trump announcement has created?
Toby, it's the same answer. Yes, but it requires will, grit, determination, and an urgency. Now, on the positive side, I think if I may say so, I think Keir Starmer's leadership over the weekend he's setting exactly the right tone. And other European countries will fall in and come alongside. Others won't. That's fine. But the coalition of the willing, and I would say it's easy, yes, of course it's got to be able, and that comes with political leadership and grit.
Do you think that this is the final straw potentially for Europe in treating the United States as an ally? Is it irreparable, this relationship?
Over the long reach of time, the long span of time, it is not irreparable. Wiser Americans 3 times in the 20th century recognized that America's security was Europe's security, and the two are intertwined. In 1917, when America belatedly joined the Allies in the First World War, 1941, and of course during the Cold War. But right now, we have to assume, as I said earlier, that America cannot be trusted as an ally, that America has forfeited, abdicated its leadership of the free world, and with that leadership of the free world came responsibilities. Now, we play a part in that abdication because we in Europe and Canada have had it too easy for too long, and we've sat back and spent our money on health, on welfare, and on social issues rather than investing in our protection and defense. And America's had enough, and the dam has broken. So we are in a new world, and I think we're in a new world where, frankly, NATO is holed below the waterline.
So, to what degree? I mean, you are a military man, who will have relied throughout your career on American support, and that being, physically and financially, as it were. To what degree is it possible in, say, the short term of Trump's 4-year term as president to sort of separate from the United States for Europe?
Trump's been in power now as president for just over a month. And look how much he's done already. Look at the potential for him to continue to wreak havoc over the next 4 years is vast, not least, frankly, to American democracy. But we've now got to recognize where we are, and we've just got to get on and make the best of it and come up with new solutions and new ways of providing our own defense and security without America. If I may say, you touched on something there at the beginning. Yeah, I was a soldier for 37 years or so. I served under command of Americans in war. I commanded Americans on operations, and I worked incredibly closely with some really fine Americans at all stages. And I've been a huge admirer of the American Army, its values, its traditions, and its quality. So there's a sort of emotional element here of the parting of the ways, which is immeasurably sad. but we have to take the world as we find it, not as we'd like to find it.
Those people, of course, won't have necessarily disappeared from the US military, will they? There will still be intelligent people who are in very important roles, but in the end, you have to carry out the mission as passed down to you, right?
They've got to do what their commander in chief says. But as I said earlier, I don't, while it may appear to be irreparable now, and I think what I said about the Americans not being trustworthy as an ally is fact now. That may change over the sweep of history, and who knows that at some stage in the future, and I fear it will be after some appalling cataclysm has occurred, that wiser Americans will recognize that America's security is dependent on European security.
Can I try and take you into the Kremlin for a moment, because it's clear that this looks great for Vladimir Putin, but equally we know that Donald Trump can change his mind, seemingly depending on what side of the bed he gets out of. So I wondered how you respond. Are you hastening all your plans for Ukraine, going, this is our unique window of opportunity to make real gains?
If Putin will be sitting rubbing his hands in glee at the moment, and will absolutely be trying to make the most of the opportunity given. He knows that the window of opportunity is there. He knows that Europe and Canada will try and close that window of opportunity as quickly as possible, or he should assume that is the case. So yeah, he will go for it. But I think the other point is, of course, that I suspect he can probably assume that Trump will not change his view of Russia, that he will continue to be a fellow traveler with Russia, and that he will continue to be Putin's most useful idiot.
Do you think that it is even worth Ukraine trying to sort of get back in with America, given what you've said about the trustworthiness? I mean, they still could be useful and will presumably, no matter what, play a role in whatever peace or ceasefire emerges, whenever that may be.
I think it would be, I think it's important not to close off any opportunities. Who knows? Things may change. There may be opportunity that the final breach may not happen just yet. And this is something that I think leading European politicians, our own Prime Minister included, are not ruling out. But I think realistically, it's a forlorn hope.
And just finally, then, in your mind, at this moment in time, and of course the caveat is that anything can change seemingly on a whim, with Donald Trump as the United States president. But at this moment in time, where do you see, and when do you see whatever peace emerges actually happening?
Well, I don't think there's going to be a peace anytime soon, because Putin is not and has not backed off one iota from his demands. And his demands effectively mean the capitulation of Ukraine. What he wants is the annexation of the 4 provinces of eastern Ukraine. He wants the neutralization or the demilitarization of Ukraine. He wants its permanent neutralization, and he wants the new government in Kiev, which will answer to him. And once he's done that, we have to assume he will move on to other countries like Moldova, like Romania, like Georgia, which he's already started with electoral manipulation. And then when he sees that NATO is effectively neutralized or destroyed by what the Americans have done to it, he will very likely have a go at the Baltic states, which brings us directly into the prospect of war between Europe and the remains of Europe, of European NATO and Russia. So I think we are in about as dangerous position as we could possibly be.